in. We're gonna give it just a second for everybody to come into the room.
Okay. We are streaming live on YouTube. Oh my God, we really are.
We're on YouTube too, so more people will watch. That's the hope, at least.
All right.
But hello, YouTube universe, as well as the Zoom universe.
Hello.
Your hair's so long.
Yeah, because I've been cutting it myself little times, but then when I go to put it in a ponytail, I'm like, this is why you go to the salon. Like in the back, it's like this, you know.
Is this just like?
Like I have such appreciation for those skills. Yes.
Yeah.
But I always had. It's not like I ever thought I could cut my hair myself. I like it. When you go to a salon, I like your curls and it looks like someone did that.
No, nobody did.
No.
Like, I look like trash all the time.
No. Throw her off that bed if she talks that way about herself.
Okay, hi everyone. We'll let more people just come in as we go, and hello to everyone watching on YouTube as well as Zoom. My name is Brittany Kerfoot. I am the Director of Events for Politics and Prose Bookstore, and I would like to welcome you all to tonight's event. I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items first. I will be dropping a link in the chat very soon where you can order a copy of today's book from Politics and Prose. And we actually have special signed copies by the author. So be sure to indicate in your order notes that you want a signed book, and we'll make sure that you get that special treat. We ship to everywhere in the US, and if you live in the DC area, you can select in-store pickup and come get your book from any of our 3 store locations. Also, if you're watching on Zoom, we are glad to be able to offer closed captioning for this event via Zoom's auto captioning service. So if you want to access the captions, just click on the live transcript option. It has the CC image at the bottom of your screen, and you should be able to access those super easy. And then finally, if you have a question for our author, please enter it into the Q&A space instead of in the chat, so they're all nice and tidy in one spot. And we will get to those in the latter half of the event. Okay, now I'm very excited to introduce tonight's program. I was so excited when Caroline Kepnes' publicist emailed me and asked if I wanted to schedule an event for this book. I read the first You book back in 2014, right after it came out, when a friend randomly recommended it to me, and I was obsessed. Back then, I did not know it was going to be part of a series, but I could not stop thinking about the book and the characters, and I wanted more. So fast forward many years later, and the books are now the inspiration for a hit Netflix series, and we're on the 3rd installment, still with our creepy narrator, Joe Goldberg, but this time he's in a new town, and he has his evil eyes set on a new woman, which is his boss at the local library. Moderating this conversation will be David and Nicola Yoon, 2 amazing writers in their own right. Nicola is the author of the #1 New York Times bestsellers, The Sun is Also a Star, and Everything, Everything, her debut novel that was turned into a major motion picture. David is the author of the bestseller Frankly in Love, and he also drew the illustrations for Nicola's book, Everything, Everything. So now I'm happy to welcome all of you to the screen, and the floor is yours.
Yay! Thank you, Brittany. Thank you. Hello, Caroline. We are so happy to see you.
Me too. I miss you, Dave and Nikki, and I love you in front of that bed. It's just lifting me up.
And we're happy to welcome Joe back into the world.
Yeah.
More Joe.
More Joe.
He's a good guy.
I still remember when I first, before we actually knew each other, Caroline, and I heard about the book, and I was like, who do I have to pay to get a copy of this book? And I emailed my publicist, and I ended up getting an advanced reader copy. And then I just read through it, and I was like, who do I have to pay to meet Caroline?
From the first 2 pages, I was like, what? Who the hell wrote this?
I know.
This amazing stuff. It was incredible.
Oh,
like,
man.
You're crazy. You're amazing. You're a genius.
Thank you.
I will say that you are one of those writers that make both of us think, oh God, we have to get better.
Yeah, we got to step it up.
Yeah, we always
think
there's a handful of writers where we go, we got to step it up. And you are one of them, Caroline.
That goes to you guys. I'm saying, just talking today, you make love, Nikki, and I'm like, I break love. And I'm like, but I'm watching you make love. I'm like, this is great. But whenever I try and make love, I'm like, I gotta learn how to do that from you. And well, Dave, the version 0, I can't even, my mind is blown and my hand is blown.
Well, you know what I was thinking about? It's so funny.
It sounds
is that-
weird, but you know what is.
Yeah.
Read the
makes
book.
sense to others,
Yeah.
All right, so I was thinking about our 3 books when I was thinking about the conversation. It's like David wrote a book about technology just sort of gone wrong and all the things that can go wrong with it, right? And I write about love because I'm a goober, and you write about the intersection of technology and love in a weird way, right? So this panel is actually sort of perfect. Also, we're really good friends. So.
Yes.
So it really works out.
This
Right,
felt perfect. Yeah, I love when things line up so perfectly like that.
Yes. All right, so Caroline, I got questions for you. But then, I love it when we just sort of chat. So the questions are a guiding light.
Keep it loose.
Right, not too loose.
Yeah.
You're weird. All right, so the last time you wrote about Joe was in 2016. What is it like to get back into his head?
I've wanted to for so long, because when I finished Hidden Bodies, like I was already thinking about, I'm like, I know the name of the baby. I know certain things and I'm dying to get in. But I kind of like, it's the sadist in me. Like I liked keeping him there, and I wanted to keep him there a while and really figure out like, what am I doing with this one to make it? Because I want each one to have its own life. I want someone to pick it up and read it and feel like that was a complete experience. Right. So yes, given everything that's happened, like I felt basically like I was the paranoid one when I was writing you. And years later, I'm like, now all we hear about is how awful everything is. And I'm like, oh God, Joe was my head spun at like so many places to go.
Right. It's hard when you feel like you're like predicting the future a little bit, right?
Yeah, and also that the future can surprise you because you think you know how bad things can get, but hey, here's something else.
Hey,
here's a
global
pandemic.
Right. Yeah. I was finishing it up and at the beginning of this, but when you're writing and you're doing the rewrites, and in the sick way, I was like, well, like this is what I needed, like to sit here with this book and like have the space, like there's nowhere to go. There's no pretend deadline that like, if I do this by this time, I can go to a bar down the street, see a friend. It's like, it's just me and Joe. Like, I'm like, that fucker finally got me in the cage. Like,
wait, is that how you felt, like he finally got you into the cage?
Yes, because there were little there are always those pieces of a book that you're like, you can't put away. And for me, I was in the procrastination mode of like, I'm getting there. But once I sat down alone, like really alone, there was nothing else. It was nice to have that space, but it feels weird to say anything about the pandemic was nice. But in that one singular respect for me on those days. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's okay to say there's been like nice things about the pandemic. Like,
I mean, it's life though, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's life.
Sort of,
Yes.
Yeah. There's still good and bad, and we still laugh, even though it's
right.
happy, right? Yeah.
Yes, it was overwhelming to be like, there was already something in the book that mentioned toilet paper, and I remember reading it like, oh, that's too on the nose, and I was like, no, wait a minute, that was in there. Like, I'm like, oh, in the grocery store, and I'm like, I've always liked the grocery store. Like, there's the grocery store in every book. So things like that. It was strange to be doing those final edits given the world. Yeah.
So I realize we should probably back up a little bit. Why don't you just give us like the setting for the new book? Like, where's Joe? What's happening with Joe?
Joe moves to Bainbridge Island in the Pacific Northwest after having had very difficult times in LA. And I feel like when I talk about this, I'm speaking from his perspective pretty much as he would describe it, because that's where that's my way in. So basically, like he had the light shining on him, the son of this family of Love Quint's family and Hidden Bodies, who were wonderful to him. He benefited from their wealth. And now in this book, things have changed. So he has gone away to a small island community after reading some Cedar Cove books and watching some Cedar Cove and thinking that's a better way of life up there. But as we know, like life is not a TV show. It is not a, cozy book. So I wanted, yes.
I think the thing that I love about Joe is that he's earnest in his own way. Do you know what I mean? Like
those are my favorite parts of the book, of all the books, where Joe's going on some rants and part of you is horrified, but the other part is like, I can kind of see it, I can kind of see it, Joe. Like if I didn't know that you were like killing people, we could be friends.
Like I feel like he does all that, but then he knows that, hey, if I had love in my life, things would be different. And he definitely feels that way about the woman that he seeks. And it's just the difference is that when you meet someone, you meet the people in their life, you think of it as your job to get along with them or to find a way. And he's like, no, I think that you're better off without them.
Right. Yes.
I know what's best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that if he was out there looking to murder and hungry for, blood and death, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. I wouldn't be able to write it. I would be bored. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things, because I write about love all the time, but there is also a flip side, right? I mean, there is an obsessiveness that can come out of that, right? And also when you choose one person, it means you're rejecting other people, right? So there is that side of it, right? Like love is wonderful and great, but it makes you super vulnerable, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you have to think, is it worth it?
And then when you couple, I think what's so brilliant about the whole series and Joe as a character is like when you couple that aspect of love, which with the fact that like every villain believes that they're the hero of their own story, they believe that they're right and that what they're doing is correct and righteous. And Joe absolutely does,
Yeah, and that love is always an opportunity to rewrite your story and to see yourself and see everything in the light. Like one of my favorite parts to write was when he's with Mary Kay and he's telling her his story, and he's like seeing, he's changing the names and he's changing the events, but he's like, this is the truth. It's not the facts. It's the truth of how I see it now that I found this person. Like I love that part of it. And then for her experience, she's seeing this person who's really like empathetic toward his exes and, what's not to love.
Right. I mean, I always say that falling in love with someone else is a little bit falling in love with yourself. But for Joe, like, what is that?
Yes.
And I don't want to give away like the big thing about this book that's so great, but like Joe, it really is like, the big question in this book for me is like, can people change? Right? Can they? Sometimes I think yes. Sometimes I think no. What do you think?
That's what I love. I love the yes and no of it. Like I like questions so much more than answers.
Yeah, I agree.
Like when, in both of your books too, it makes you think like, oh, someone has the best of intentions, but they're doing bad things to get there sometimes, or they're expressing their love in a way that's hurtful, but they're doing it because they think that's the right thing to do. And that's what I'm interested in, like that thought process in there. And I feel like there's change. You know that scene in Dumb and Dumber when they go to the salon and they get their hair done, and then at the end they just like mess it all up, and they're like, it's like a little bit like that. Like this next step to that would be to stay with that, to say, okay, I'm going to try on this new way of life, or I'm going to think that no, I am what I am. And I just love that. I feel like a question that can't be answered is my favorite kind of question.
Yeah.
And
people are able to rationalize so many things, right? It's always it's never like the big lie is never the big lie. It's a series of small ones, right? It's always like that.
Yes.
And they either like keep you stuck in a sense of self that you don't actually like in your heart of hearts, but you have justified to the point where you're stuck in it, or they'll lead you to someplace better. But they're both valid thought processes. That's kind of the terrifying thing.
Yes. It's the validity.
Caroline, my next question. Since the last book in the series has come out, what is it like to watch the characters come alive on screen?
Well, you know about this. It's wild. I remember with you, I remember being at the Grove and like, there's Nikki. Like, it's just, it's absolutely wild. I think writing, like, you're so alone, you're playing with your toy, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's great when people start reading it. I'm like, it's a book club on crack. And then when you add a real actor to it, and suddenly like this person who I wasn't very good at picturing, or the picture was blurry, like kind of like the cover of this book, the picture was always changing. And I'd go out in the day, like, that's him. Ooh, that's him. Because for me, it was about how Joe sees people. And in that way, like how he sees himself, quite good. But then to have this actor step in and do such a good job and bring his own self into it, it's wild.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. I thought he was perfectly cast.
Yes, agreed.
I really did.
So wait, so when you were writing You Love Me, did you picture him in your head now, or is it still? Yeah,
how much does reality invade?
For me, it's weird. Like I don't, because to me, like the show, it's different. Like when I'm writing the book, I'm completely inside of him. And that was my original goal and my challenge to myself. Like, can I get in this head? Can I make it seem real? Can I make other people want to be there? So in the show, I love watching, but that, like, for me, like, I'm not a picture as much when I'm writing. I'm hearing and I'm thinking, like, I'm seeing it almost in like the haze of his perspective. Like, I remember talking to them early on and saying that if I was writing the script, I'd be like, page 1, voiceover. Every page, voiceover. That's what, like, because even it's like in the dialogue of other characters talking, in the book, to me, you're still hearing what he's hearing. Like you're hearing how he hears Mary Kay, how he hears Seamus, not necessarily how they sound. So the visual, the screen is so different.
Right. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that's so hard too when you like have a movie come out. Like, first of all, everyone will tell you all the differences between the book and the movie. As if you don't know. I'm like,
and how did you handle that? Yeah. How did you handle that when it started?
You know, at first it was hard. It was like the first version of the script for everything I read, not gonna lie, it wasn't good. It was pretty terrible. And he read it and he
worked on it.
David read it and he stopped reading it. He's like, I'm just gonna put this over here.
Yes.
I was like, we're gonna work on it.
But then, you know, I mean, by the set revisions later, it was just so much better. And then you have to take yourself out of it. You have to take your book out of it because it's a different medium.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And that's what I really, I mean, I've always believed this, but like, I really realized that films just can't do what books do. There's not enough space.
They do different things. Like you're reading.
Yeah.
Like when you're reading, and there's nothing like it. Like it's you and those words, and that's a singular experience. It's like when you go to a museum and you're standing next to someone and you're looking at the same painting, you know that they see it differently because they're seeing it with all of their experiences and all of their feelings. And I feel like books are kind of like that. Like it's your brain is doing things you don't even know about.
Yeah, I think the best moment for me was like, there was a moment in one of the later versions of everything that I had not written that was so good. And I remember having the thought, God, I wish I'd written that. And then I was like, oh, the script is good now.
Yeah.
You know, like, because I just didn't, you know, you get that sort of writer envy. I was like, damn it, I should have written that.
And that was the movie doing what it's good at, what it's best at doing. So we just let go. You're like, do what you're gonna do.
Yes, and with going back in, like when I read the pilot, I loved it. And like, I loved it as a pilot. And because they kept telling me it's going to feel like the book. And it was so strange to like, it does. And then when something goes on, it's like, of course it's going to change. Like as writers, we know, like if you leave me alone with something, I'm going to change it. Like
as much time as you have, you'll change it, right?
Yeah.
Until you reach the deadline.
I throw away hundreds of pages with every book. Like,
wait, how fast do you write, Caroline?
I write too fast.
You do, right?
We're the opposite. Like I write fast and long, and also I get on this high where I'm like, this is it, and then I'm like coming down, like, no, it's not, you know, and everything is spelled wrong.
David is a fast writer too.
Yeah, I feel that in version 0 especially. Yeah, I could see like
he just is like this.
And you write longhand, Nikki.
Yeah, I mean, well, she writes longhand because she's but.
Rude.
and then what she does is, so she gets like stacks of notebooks and then she types it all in, and that's another like filter, like an editing process. So there's like phases of editing process.
I can see the value in that and so much, because I'll do that. Like I'll print out pages and rewrite them, looking at them if I'm really stuck, and I feel like that's a really good process. But I can never read my own handwriting. So that
I mean, my handwriting is terrible, but I can read it out.
Yeah, if you can read it, it's great.
Yeah, that's what matters. Okay, more questions. So I think the book fans here know that the show and the book have gone down different paths. So what was that like for you, and did it affect how you wrote the third book?
I had been planning the third book for so long and thinking about it for so long. And I remember this moment in a coffee shop like years ago where on my iPod, this Whitney Houston song came on, and I had one of those explosive moments of like, oh my God, like I just got somewhere. And suddenly I could see Mary Kay and hear her. So it's been a long time. And it was
which Whitney Houston song?
How will I know? Oh, don't sing. See, that's I haven't been drinking a lot. I'm like 2 sips of vodka. I'm singing. Yeah. I say
I can't remember the words. Every heartbeat. Falling in love is so bittersweet. Okay, we should stop.
It's karaoke night.
Or we can do singing after the rest. Yes.
So wait, what was it about the song? Like, what did that spark?
It was I feel like I love her voice, and it was honestly, it was the very opening when she says, "There's a boy." It's not like I can't do it. Only she can do that. But you know how it starts with that intensity, and it made me. It's like with the first book, there's always a music moment that like helps me jump into where he is, and how you feel like in a song you can feel that excitement. Like I feel like I'm always trying to get songs on the page in the way that they can make you feel. And for him,
He
I'm
is
like,
too.
he'll listen to that song and he believes that it's real. And that's the way I could be as a kid too. Like I could listen to a song enough that I believed like Joey McIntyre was in love with me. How could he not like? I couldn't be like when the feeling is real. So you think that your reality has relevance to reality at large.
Right, because especially when we're younger, we're just like these little egomaniacs, so we think we can affect the world, right?
Yes, and that's how I think of Joe. Like is part of him really didn't grow up normally and naturally, and is missing some of those pieces. So he can talk himself into things, but also like take a feeling and go with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think what you said just now is so interesting because I have this idea that one day I want to write a book that makes you feel as acutely as like your favorite like pop song, or just your favorite song, but it's different mediums, like you always say.
Yeah, and it's so like a song is so visceral and it's so tied to memory and nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yes, and I can. Yeah. And then I can definitely like in early drafts, like I feel like I'll find myself, oh, this is a crutch right here. Like this is when I was like overdoing it, and then I'm scaling back, like figuring it out. But I love music for getting you into that emotional mindset.
So just as an aside, do you listen to music while you're writing or no?
No, I listen to music when I'm walking around thinking, and when I think I figured it all out. I love that powerful high of like, I'm making notes in the phone, I'm listening to music, it's all there, and get home and sit down. Time to get to work. So I like, for the thinking part of the writing, I love it. And in coffee shops, I feel like I used to be better at the, like where I could sit, listen to music while writing. It depends on the thing. What about you guys?
No music. Silence.
Yeah.
Absolute silence. And also the darker the better. So I write in silence in the dark. It's kind of simple.
Ooh, oh my God.
Just...
Is this like blackout curtains or at night or?
No, I mean, I have this like fuzzy ball chair that Nikki got me.
Seriously, it's just, you know that egg-shaped chair, but it's like this perfect sphere, and he just like sits in it, and it's a little bit soundproof. He loves this chair. It's the best thing I ever bought him. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I like wandered into the bedroom and he's just in his chair, and I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna walk by you now.
I love that.
And I walk into her office and she's like this.
Right.
Right.
And I listen to thunderstorms like on my headphones.
Oh, like that, like
the
ambient
music, I'll
sound.
just what? Say it again.
Like ambient sound, just
Yes.
Yeah, because if you write to music, if I do, I'll just start writing the music.
Yeah.
I'll just be like, how will I know if you really listen?
Right. I'll have the TV on, and when I'm getting started, and then I love that moment when I don't know that it's on and I don't hear it, and I'm fully locked in, and then I'm like mute, because I like the fight of writing a little bit when you're stuck. Right. Like we know those moments when you're in flow and it's all going great, but those other moments are like, oh, I'm figuring this thing out. So I like feeling like I beat that. Like that's TV was right there. I could have been watching The Nanny, and no, I got so sucked into this that I missed the end of The Nanny. Like,
I'm gonna talk to you like offline about your obsession with The Nanny.
And I'm gonna get to look this up.
Yeah, it's new. Yes.
You and me, Caroline. All right. So wait, do you like first drafting better or revising?
Revising. So much, no question. Yeah.
First drafting.
Yeah, because he's not actually a normal human.
Everyone hates me.
Oh, okay. Well, you would know. Yeah.
I like revising better because I am in fact a normal human being.
Yeah.
Writing is fun. I want a t-shirt that says writing is fun.
Well, I love writing the first draft, but what disturbs me is that every single one, I'm like, it's so seductive. And I'm like, you guys, like, this is it. Like, I wrote it. It's done. This is the first time that the first draft, it's over. Like,
what is done?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
that's
then
right, not one time.
Yep. And then you're slowly going down that hill. Like, I go to sleep at night. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's like.
I am so like when I'm writing the first draft, I'm so thrilled that I know that I will get to revise because I know what I'm writing is terrible. And the thing I always say is that I only have a career because I'm good at revision. Right. Not because I'm good at first drafting, because I'm crap at first drafting. But
do you do those notes in your first draft? Will you put like something great happens here, or the great conversation? Or do you write it all?
Yeah. My favorite note is actual human emotion to come. That's what I write everywhere. It's like actual human emotion.
I love that.
Transition TK, reaction TK. I've seen them all.
I'll write like so amazing cliffhanger. Yes. And then write the bad version of it, and but actual human emotion. That's
I think that if people actually like, the wonderful readers actually saw our first draft, they'd be like, how do these people have jobs?
Right. But do you get swept at, like, when you're sitting there with all of your notebooks, do you have the impulse to, like, this is it? Like, I just want to put this out there. This is it. Or do you feel
never,
like,
no.
Yeah.
I'm always so glad that there's going to be a revision process because I know it's nonsense when I've written down.
Yes.
Do
And what
ever
about
get
you,
that,
Dave? Like,
all the time. Yeah, I'm like, I did it. I'm like you. I'm like, I fucking did it.
Did it,
I'm the one.
turns out writing books
Human being on
easy.
earth.
Writing is easy, like Steve Martin said.
And that was part of the Whitney Houston emotion stuff in this book, was like trusting your feelings. Because for me, like, when I have those feelings that about that first draft, I'm like, emotions are terrifying. Because in this moment, like, I can step outside of myself and understand that my high right now is because of me and the work. Like, I finished it, I got a draft done, I'll post on Instagram like it's done. But then I'm like slowly like, oh my God, it sounds like I'm saying it's done. It's like, no, they're not, they're responding to what I said. And a day later, I'm like, it's not done. Like, that draft, like, why did I do that? It's like,
because you're so glad just to be done with the first draft, right?
Yes.
I just finished something and posted on Instagram because apparently that's what writers do, is post on Instagram. And this book is 2 years out.
Yeah, and all of our friends and family who don't understand how publishing works, understandably, think, oh, so I can buy it tomorrow. It's done. Like, they printed it up and it's all. I'm like, no,
yeah.
it's
And then when it's a year later and you're like, I can't do this, I'm working on the book. They're like, but you finished it. Like, oh.
All right. So another question. Will we see Joe again? Possibly.
Oh, yeah. I finished the first draft of U4 in late December. Yes. It's the ultimate pandemic writing draft, because it's like full of masks and all that. So I think I'm going to scale back on that. And now I'm going to.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. Yeah. But that could be interesting.
Yeah.
This moment deserves commemorating.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I'm happy to have it. And I think, I feel like for me, it's the draft where he's going to mention some of this in the book, but it's not going to be set during the pandemic. I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel ready to necessarily write something in it. Nope. And I don't know if anyone wants to read it.
Yeah, not yet, right? I mean, I don't feel like we have to write the moment we're living as we're living in.
I really just want to escape.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The processing. It was weird for me because I feel like my book, I remember writing you, and it was like, someone dies in real life, and I'm like, he died today in the book, and it felt like the time. But that's something when you ask about how the world is different, I'm like, this year, this is too much. Yeah.
I mean, we haven't all processed it, And,
no.
My new book is about events that happened maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, or 2 or 3 years ago, right? Like, it just takes time to know how you even feel about it, much less to have perspective and something to say about it.
The perspective and the distance to feel like you're in charge of the narrative.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that sort of social media and sort of the news cycle does is that you have to know how you feel right now about everything that is still happening right now. Right. Who does that? No one is like that.
And you have to be really with absolute certitude. You have to put it down on the permanent record.
Right. Yes, the certitude and the permanence are terrifying as I look at the thing that says recording.
Right.
That's recording it. Recording. This is thinking and talking out loud. Yes.
Hi, 2050.
I mean, Joe certainly takes advantage of that, right? Instead of our need to say how we're feeling, show where we are, what we're eating, what we're doing it with. What do you think that is? What do you think? Why is social media actually so successful? And I'm going to ask you this too, because David's next book is also about technology and social media. So what is that human?
David's book made me want to just throw the phone away. It was we go through those, I'll delete this. It was no, this thing's got to go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's there's power in feeling like you can connect with people, and there's warmth and connection. And then it's giving you a way to say things to the world. To me, these opportunities that we didn't have when we were younger. So it fascinates me. What got me going with you was it just wasn't an issue for so much of my life that when something happened, I could tell the whole world how I feel about it.
Right.
And that's a different, and talking to strangers. And it's all of those as I can be private and I like to think about things and ruminate, and it's all contrary to how this works. To be spontaneously sharing your reactions. And I think of thoughts and reactions is different.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know.
Ooh, yes, I see that.
And so many of the reactions are crafted, to respond to what the algorithm will reward.
Yep.
And what the algorithm generally rewards is more sort of titillating, extreme content.
And outrage.
Yes.
Right?
And it's all the extreme emotions like titillation, rage. And
Which you
so,
covered so well in your book.
And so like if you're tailoring your
sorry.
responses.
Can you just talk a little bit about your book, David?
What, version 0?
Yes. That one.
It's my adult debut thriller. It's about the internet. It's about this guy who's a brilliant product manager in the tech industry. And he blows the whistle on his company because they're doing shady stuff with data. He gets blackballed. He decides to embark on his own mission to take down like the big 5 tech companies for their sins against humanity. And along the way, he like meets up with this reclusive kind of psychopathic Mark Zuckerberg type, and they team up.
And it's glorious.
Yeah, and then stuff happens. They don't.
Yep. And it's a great example of that good old fashioned, like in those moments, like I'm the idiot that was like, I thought my suspicion of that character was like my problem. And I'm like, oh, this is nice. Like this is, yes, like this is a nice mentoring, like,
come on, man. He's a good guy. Yeah,
I feel like we've all had developed different thought patterns from all of this,
Yeah, and like good guys and bad guys, tech goes beyond. So it's so much bigger than any of us. It's so much bigger than are you a good person or a bad person?
Yes.
It just is. It supersedes morality entirely and humanity entirely.
And it's just always there of it, the way it doesn't shut down. Like I'm like, if I have ice cream in the freezer, I want to eat all of it all at once. Like I don't want to, like that's just how I am. And I think of it as like it's a freezer full of ice cream.
And they'll just let it happen.
Yeah.
You can't empty it unless you're willing to go without having a freezer. It's just
totally.
Yeah.
It's so true. And it totally enables that addictive behavior. It'll give you sweeter ice cream. It'll give you ice cream with opioids in it. It'll, until you just die.
Yes.
It's like the YouTube algorithm where it's like, it's like it'll show you another video. And then you just keep watching and all the videos like you say.
And then suddenly you're watching beheadings.
Right.
And you're like, how did I get here? And it's normalized. That's the other thing. It's like you feel
right.
Like
and then the way you like, especially like I Google some dark things as you probably expect. So I'll go on and the ads that come at me, I'm like, you guys, it's for Joe. Like it's not like this is
yeah.
But I know what it seems like, but
I made the mistake of dipping my toe into 4chan when all that crap was happening. And I was like, I bleached my eyeballs afterwards. You can't unsee the stuff that's on there.
Right.
And the fact that it's allowed at scale, and that's the important part, is at scale, so that any 10-year-old, who has maybe parents are too busy or no parents or whatever, and so they have unfettered access to the internet, it's going to rewire their brain and think in ways that we just haven't figured out yet.
Right, because it is so new. I mean, to me, like, especially we're growing up, like, and being a young adult without any of the social media was just such a different experience from having being in your formative years now. So it never stops blowing my mind.
Well, because you're not allowed to be stupid, right? Like I was an idiot as a child, right? But if there's no permanent record of it.
Oh my God, yes, right.
Yeah.
And I didn't have like unfettered access to like violence and porn when I was 10. And I'm really happy that I didn't.
Yeah, I have this diary entry I found where I'm like, I wish I was watching a dirty movie. I'm like, oh my God, like to think that I have a different childhood where I could have had a way to tell the world that and what that would have done for my parents. Like, what is wrong with her? Like, I wanted to be an adult, but in my own idea of what being an adult was.
It's terrifying.
But we could, we could have privacy. It's the privacy of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, I have 2 more questions, and I guess we should maybe take some.
Oh yeah.
For the last 30 minutes, maybe take some audience questions. All right. So first question is, what would Pandemic Joe do?
He would have a field day, and
Tell
that's
me
where,
how.
like when I tore through this draft, it was like, oh my God. Without giving things away, because plans change. It was like, he can, like, he wants to find out about someone. He can watch their outside life for a couple of days, figure out when they order Postmates, go up, tell the Postmate, oh, I live here. As the Postmate opens the door, I'll take that out. It was like overwhelming to me. He loves masks because it's so easy to like, someone can think, I think that was you. I mean, masks fascinate me that way. The way like human interaction has become so different because of them. So yes.
I mean, we've been going for walks around the neighborhood as everyone is, right? And we're masked up and like you'll wave at the people who stop to let you cross the street. And I think I'm having this big smile and wave, but you can't tell, right?
Right.
You can't see what I'm doing.
You don't know. The
Right.
good part is you can walk around singing with headphones on, like or lip syncing. But then the other day, someone I think they laughed at me, but I was like, I'm walking I'm like, oh yeah, we're still humans. We can still see some stuff.
Yeah.
And I also think it's made everyone much more very oversensitive. Like I've been so deprived of human stimulation that when I do go out, things are wild to me. Things that always kind of bothered me. Like I went into a liquor store last week and this woman came in and she's in exercise gear at the top of her lungs, talking and describing a yoga class in great detail. And I go up to the counter and the guy working there, he has this look on his face. I'm like, I know. And it was like this. And then I was like, I want to go home. Like I've been contemplating going for a walk. But I was like, now I just want to go home. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, you have no idea. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And I feel like she's probably in her own, we're all in our own
Right.
state right now,
But I also feel like eyes are so expressive too, right? If you get close enough, you can see the desperation.
Yes. Or you can,
craft people
yeah,
out.
you can see someone singing, you can see the sadness, you can see that. That's why sunglasses with face masks weird me out. I mean, it's LA,
Oh,
so we see this, but
it's perfect. You might as well have no face.
Yeah.
yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So what have you been reading in quarantine? Have you been reading? How's it going?
I've been on a good run. I've read Erin Kelly's book that was just out, Watch Her Fall. We had an event last week. She's in England and it's a very twisted ballet book, but we had a laugh because the twist it's major. And we're beforehand, we're like, how the fuck are we going to talk about our books? It's so hard to talk about them without giving things away. And then I read Alma Katsu's Red Widow. I loved that. And I just found out that there's a sequel, so I'm excited about that. I read Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chismar, which is another book you can't talk about without ruining. And those are some lately. What about you guys?
You first.
I've been reading a lot of romance books, as I do. Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert is fantastic, so good. Just really romantic, also quite sexy. So if you're not into sexy, do not read this book, you guys. But it's very sexy and I love sexy.
Who's not into sexy?
Yeah.
Some people are not into sexy.
All right.
So
I think right now everybody needs some sexy.
Right. I mean, honestly. What did you read?
I read The Wrong House. You read that?
No.
It's great, and I can't talk about it. It's hard. That one's really hard to talk about without revealing the twist.
Yeah.
It's a thriller. And I've been rereading Elmore Leonard. I was just reading Out of Sight, just to see how he did it.
Yes.
And it's fascinating. It's so economical, and that's back when books were this thin.
Right.
You could make a whole world in 180 pages.
Yes.
So that's been really fun.
I've gone back to a few older things, the things that I read a while ago that I was kind of curious to read in this mind state. Emily Alone is a book that I love. And
nice.
It's one of those books I read a while ago, and it was great. So it's great again. But
and I'm psyched to read Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. But
I love him.
she took it off
my high
TBR.
school kind of thesis on him. Yes.
Oh, you did? Really?
Oh,
Wow.
He's so amazing.
I want to be him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is a career. That is a writing career.
Yep. Let's all be him.
Yeah. Yeah, but I stole it away from him, so he can't read it.
I know.
All right, party people, I'm going to look at the questions. So let me just stretch.
You want me to navigate? I'll navigate.
Do you want to do it?
Wow, there's a lot of questions. Okay,
let's just go down the list.
Okay.
Okay. So from Brittany Larson, Joe is such a fascinating character. Was your intention for your readers to relate to Joe and his romantic struggles, or was your intention for readers to see him as a monster?
I think a little bit of both. I like that I wanted you to feel like you relate to him in a paragraph, and then a moment later, he's doing something you would never do. And you're thinking about the times that you have been in your own way crazy in love. It's like you are you. So you've had your moments, as we all have, and that no one knows about them. When you get excited about someone or mad at someone and your brain goes crazy. I thought, what a great trick to show someone else's, and then you're thinking about your own that you kind of don't tell anyone about. So,
right.
But then all of the murder is those are to me the way that it works, the separate packages as far as the reading experience.
I mean, I do think it's one of those things where, again, as I said, there's two sides to love, right? I mean, there is it's pure and all this stuff, but it can be obsessive, and it can be the first time I met David, And I was like, I knew he was for me. Like the flip side of that was I started to worry about everything, right? Like if he didn't come home, I'd be like, oh, he's been hit by a car. Right.
Yeah.
Sort of, right. And that is, I mean, it's all.
And that's the theme of everything for me. Like, it's like, yeah, love is like, it's all, it can be all consuming. And to feeling that way it makes you vulnerable and it makes you nervous and care and scared. Like there's all of that.
And when he used to have a full-time job, or we dropped my daughter off at school, I would think my heart has left the building and gone out. It's gone for a walk, and like, what am I going to do? I can't lose them.
Yes.
And that is so love is wonderful. It makes you vulnerable, but it's also terrifying.
It raises the stakes like you wouldn't believe. Yeah.
For me, like this character, part of that, like with the relatability is that Joe is someone like someone didn't feel that way about him. And it's not saying that like I feel like so many people can have rough childhoods and be great, but I'm very interested in like why some people come through those experiences and they're brave in the world and they don't get bitter. And this is one who does. And it's like, why, we just don't like, there's so much about the human experience that is a mystery.
Oh yeah. All right, more questions. You're gonna see my hand real big. Whoops. Do you have a favorite book of the series?
Oh, in that, like right now, this one, I mean, I'm so excited about it. And I think that I had so much time. I had the time off. I was so excited to go back to him. Like, I love the relationship he has. I was so excited for him to meet a Gen X woman, and it wouldn't be so easy for him to be so critical of someone. I was like, I'm going to really mess with him. I'm going to make it like, this woman is the one. I wanted to have him to have that experience of like, for the reader to feel like, this, because it's like whether either we go around saying love is everything, love wins, love can make everything happen. Like, does that apply for Joe? Like, he gets those messages, and it was,
Joe tries. He tries so hard.
He's been through a lot. Let's see. Thoughts on the Netflix series. What did they change that you love, and what did they get wrong?
Oh, I don't think in season 1 they added Paco. So in Joe is talking to typewriters. And for me, these books are ultimately about like beyond the murder. They're about anyone who feels like an outsider, that aloneness, like he doesn't feel like he belongs. And he is initially drawn to Beck because she's having issues belonging, and he feels like she shouldn't even want to belong. Anyhow, in the book, he's talking to typewriters. They introduce the character Paco, and has that relationship that for me, that was the first kind of major change on a psychological level, because if book Joe had Paco, it would be different. Like, so I feel like once you change, like, it's like Jenga, you pull out that piece and then they're building something else there. So I really felt like this show is going to be its own presentation, its own exploration of this character. And I'm going to keep doing mine. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a hard thing to come to for The Sun Is Also a Star. I had to come to that too, right? It's like the book is the thing that I wrote, and that's mine. And this is another piece of art, which is lovely and beautiful about characters that I love, but is a different thing.
Yeah, it just kind of is what it is. Like, you understand the producer, the movie producers, or the TV producers. So like, you can't have Joe talking to typewriters because on the screen it just maybe wouldn't work so well.
Right. And if and when you're working, like especially when you want something to go on for several years, like, because that's just how it is. So that you change that one thing, like he's not talking to typewriters in the later books, but for me, that was a key part of like, this is the level of the loneliness.
Yes.
And
I think that's one of the things that sometimes your like sort of fans don't understand. It's like it's necessarily different. And also, I'm like, we don't control the casting.
Right. Yes, we don't control anything. And I'm like, show me an author who wouldn't be like, yes, every page of this book, boom, shoot it, done, print it, like of course I would love to see Joe on the boat, like everything. I would love to see like an hour scene with him and Henderson. But it's different. It's a different medium. And I'm like, and nothing will ever be reading the book. That's my thing, that like, you can read a book, you paint it all in your head. It would never, like, it's never the same. It's just different experiences.
Right. I mean, I think where I finally got to was just, I love that there's more art about the characters I love.
Yeah.
And that's great.
And seeing them up on the screen.
You write because all the books you read and all the things you watch that make you want to make stuff, and now someone else, you're the source. I love that phrase, source material. Like, it's cool. Yes. It's the way the world works.
All right,
let's go on Q&A.
What is
Okay, this Lola Adams. You write Joe so brilliantly. Is it hard to write not only outside of your gender, but to embody someone who thinks and acts so differently than you do? How do you make him authentic?
Thank you, Lola. I think of those people that go to the gym. Like, I went through a brief period where I was a gym person. I remember the trainer saying, like, you're supposed to hurt the next day because you have to try harder. Like, I like that with writing. Like, I like the challenge. I like the uphill battle. And I also, at this point, like sustaining it. Like, I was very hard on myself with this book. Like, it can so easily feel like, who the hell said to write another book about someone? Like, I've never written a series. I didn't plan for it to be a series. So on a daily basis, I'm like, I want this to feel like, yes, this book on its own exists and should, and there's a reason for it, you know, for the reader to enjoy it and feel like, oh yeah, I still love this character. I'm still on this ride with them. And
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
have
think
to
that
get
you did
myself out of
so-
there at times. Yeah. Like, I did something with Melinda in this book where I was like, okay, like, that's like, I would feel away and I would do a thing that Joe would not do. So,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I think what's so great about the whole series is that, I mean, Joe is changing. Like, he is learning, right? And like, and it feels fresh every time. And you're in it with him. You're like rooting for Joe to like
Good.
just be better. Stop killing people, Joe.
That was the whole thing, was like a human experiment. Like, can I build a person, you know, that
Yeah.
will feel like
Yeah.
he's growing, like even in the
Yeah.
first book. So with everybody, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do the same thing over. And I want to feel like there's a way also to not like recap everything or have the plot all connected, but have the character growing and casually reflecting on his past experiences.
Yeah.
It was so telling when we were back at Book Soup for your You launch, and there were so many Joe stands in the audience that were just like in love with Joe, and I was like,
Yes.
you managed to make a bunch of people in love with a serial killer. That's like
Right.
Genius.
Yeah.
And they were great. Like, since with the book, I feel like the book brings you inside his head and you stay there.
Mhm.
And that was my whole goal. Like, you're inside his head. So there's no escape. There's no choice. It was another one of those moments like, can I pull this off? Like, is this boring and crazy? Like, for some people it will be, but for some people they'll love it. And that kind of love, like that book love for Joe, for me, is different from like, I love Penn Badgley. Like, it's, you know, what he's doing on screen is different from reading the book. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I think it's funny because this question gets sort of bandied about all the time. Like, can you write someone else's race? Can you write someone else's gender? Can you write? And the whole job of writing is to like embody another person, right? Like, it is empathy. And that is not to say that that's easy, because it's unbelievably difficult to embody another person. But it is, in fact, the entire job, right?
Right. It is to me, it's the imagination of putting yourself in someone else's
Right.
shoes. And yeah, and then you
And we're all just people. We're not like alien creatures.
Yes.
I can figure out how to write that person. I promise
Yes.
you, I can figure it out.
and show how they come together and what
Yeah.
it feels like for them to be around those people. Like, that was one of my favorite things about David's book, when it's like, white lady. It's like, yeah, this is how I'm like, yeah, this is what it's like.
Yeah.
And this is a good capturing of that experience.
Yeah.
Okay, questions.
All right.
How do you feel like your experience with relationships has shaped your writing?
And that is from Courtney Hayes.
Hi, Courtney. I'll give you my therapist number. You guys can have a long talk. No, I'm happy. I've gotten this question like, who's Joe? Like, I'm so happy to say there is no Joe in your life. I've had relationships that, like, I don't talk at length about the relationships I've had. There's no one who's a monster like that. I always go off emotions and ways that I felt, and that upon reflection, like when I've been hurt by someone and I think about what I was responsible for, what I was projecting, and always looking back. So I'm always going like, and how also dealing with me must have been for them, because I can be a little much at times.
You're awesome, Caroline.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
But I do like that idea of like taking a specific emotion and I mean, what I like to do is like just stretch it to its logical extreme. So like, what if you hadn't fixed that situation and just let it fester? Or
Right.
what if you had fixed it or whatever, you know?
And for me, like, plot can be really scary, but I'm always like, plot is like when you think of a moment when someone said something that you were like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Or someone did something that you were like, no, I'm like, that's plot. Because it's like, that's the next step. That's someone going further over the edge. So I draw on those feelings, and it doesn't mean that like, yes, I was right to feel that way and I did the right thing. It's like channeling that emotional.
Yeah. Losing the whole idea of right and wrong and just reacting and what your emotions are doing to you lead to some awesomely bad decisions, which I love.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what happens is people think that some of the stories are so autobiographical, right? And
Autofiction.
It's just not, right? I mean, some of it, like, it starts from a place, but you know, like my second book is not like I didn't get deported, right? Like I do, like I just made it up, but there are real feelings, and for me,
and you've read about that happening. And you're applying your emotions to something that's interesting to you and compelling and telling a story about it. Like I worked in a bookstore and there was a basement, but I wasn't trapped down there against my will.
You were not locked in a cage, Caroline?
Nope. Cage.
All right, let's see. Anna Louise Callis says, what is the next book project for all the authors?
You first. Me first?
Version 0.
Oh, version 0, the adult thriller I mentioned about the internet, that's coming out in May 25th. I forget my own launch date. And so, and like I said, that's like, I worked in tech for over 12 years. I was like a user experience guy. I was the guy who designed the interface, but also figured out how to get customers to buy your app and like stay on your app and make it sticky.
Evil.
Oh God, I just said sticky.
Evil.
Monetize your stickiness. Sorry. Anyway, there's so much. Tech is such a weird mix of humanity. It's like hypocrisy, but really just a genuine curiosity and a desire to make cool stuff. But yet the end product is ultimately not so great. And so that was the inspiration for the book. And I do want to try to answer that question. Is our tech life good in the end, ultimately?
Is the internet good or bad?
Is it good or bad? Make an answer. And I think my book tries to make that answer.
David definitely has a point of view about whether or not it's good or bad.
like our daughter's 8, she just turned 9, and she's not going on. I'm gonna keep her off social media for ever if I can.
Is she asking about it?
No, because I've told her all about it. I'm like,
he's indoctrinated her. She doesn't want anything to do with social media.
I'm like, you think that game is free? It's not free.
It's collecting your data. Oh my God. All day, every day. I'm just like, I'm walking out of this room now. I'll be over here. So my next book is Instructions for Dancing, and it comes out on June 1st. And it's about a girl who can see the future. Whenever she sees a couple kiss, she sees the whole history of their relationship. So she sees when they got together and like their highlights, and then how it ends. And the thing she notices is how everything ends. And then, one day she meets the cute boy, and then what is she going to do given all the information she knows?
Laughing while crying. This is a laughing while crying book.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's some tears.
A lot of tears, but you're laughing too.
Right. And then Caroline, what's your next one? I mean, this one today, and then
this one today, and I'm working on U4. And I have another book that I did a couple drafts of and put aside about a woman who's a writer, and she's dealing with the men in her life. And she's not Joe, but she's not okay. I'm excited to go back to that and get into that one. Yes.
Awesome.
Caroline, you're an insta-buy author for me. I just want you to know that. I mean, besides the fact that we're friends, like I always, like I'm always ready. I'm like, Caroline's got a book.
Well, yeah, when I got my personalized, I'm still like in awe of it. The personalized instructions for dancing. I'm like, this is my day. Yeah, I feel like I took that, like that brought out the Psycho Joe in me. I'm like, it's new Nikki, and it's just for me. And I haven't even posted yet because I'm like, it's mine.
Well, I mean, we're the Mutual Admiration Society.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
When we got the arc of the advanced reader copy of Providence, I started flipping through it, and then I just finished it. And I was like, where did the time go?
Providence, that was one of those ones where we were like, oh my God, we gotta get better. Caroline's so like, good.
Oh God. Kepnes.
All right, Brittany Larson. You've talked about the editing process. What's the most helpful or insightful thing an editor has ever communicated to you?
Oh, wow.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a good one. Because there's so much. I like for me, my Cara, when she says, like, I know what you want to do, but you didn't do it. I like that kind of like where someone can feel, and sometimes even when I'm not good at putting into words what I want to do, and I feel like this person who can understand the motivation with the clarity that helps me then go and do it to better understand myself. Like a good editor is like sees you better than you see yourself sometimes, or your intent. Yeah. What about you?
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah, I hate the note where it's like, do this. I'm just like, no. Tell me what the problem is. Like, tell me what is not landing for you, like what's wrong, and I can fix that, right? So like the person who, like, I love my editor because she knows me so well, and she just knows, like she knows what my intent is, and she can just say it's not working, and I can take that and fix it. But specifics never work for me because it's almost never the way I want to do it. Like don't tell me what, just tell me why it's not working.
Yes, that's well said.
Although, I don't know, my editor, Mark Devani, who we worked on version 0 together, we're working on something else. And he told me stuff about this book that I had to play it cool and be like, yeah, I meant that. Totally. Good catch, man. Like, when in reality, I was like, I don't know what that instinct came from, but he saw it and he was like, take that thing that instinct that you had and just sharpen it. So it's for outside consumption. So other people can understand it as sharply as you felt it, and that's sort of the challenge. But when you find that editor, it's amazing. It's like mind meld.
Yeah, it's such a great feeling to have a good, like, I mean, I think people know that writing is lonely and solitary, but publishing a book isn't, right? Like those are different things.
Then it's a team effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, and a good editor is like, my editor is absolutely smarter than me, and that's how it needs to be.
Yep. I like my whole goal. I'm like, I like talking. You guys are smarter than me to me. Like, I like talking to people smarter than me so much about books. And I like that moment of like someone getting something that you did or trying to do that's very special to me. Like, I would say like, let that, like when you have that editor who's smart, that friend reading who like sees things, and it can hurt for a minute because you kind of want to be the master, but it's like you're a better master when you let someone smart talk to you.
Just hold on to them with everything you got, and watch what they do at night and keep tabs on their social media.
Maybe lock them in a cage. Maybe a cage in a basement of a bookstore. Just a thought. All right. So
do we have time for one more? It's 6.
Let's just do one. There's like 3. Let's just do one more.
Like lightning round or what?
Well, I don't think any of these are lightning round. They're kind of long. Okay, so this one's pretty good. Lexi Warwell. Obviously, today's technology has a large part of how Joe finds love. Do you believe Joe could survive the 1990s? Thinking about Joe using yellow pages and payphone. Like, how would that work out?
Absolutely. Like for me, there's nothing new about this. Like I did have a stalker in the 90s. It was nothing like Joe on any level, but yes, like he would have been just fine. Just the other day, like I can't remember if it was online or in life, but there was a utility pole and this girl had written a hysterical note about a neighbor making noise. And I was like, yep, Joe would see that. He would figure out where she lived. Like we've always tried to talk to people and we've always looked into the void. Like that's what humans do. So absolutely. To me, I wanted to explore how all of this is so much easier now, but the impulse is just deeply human. The impulse is not created by all this. I think it's just enabled.
Yeah, that's very
I would love to see Joe in the 90s. I've thought about that. Like it's a book I feel like I'll write at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Caroline, you're so smart.
Yeah.
No, you are, but what am I?
I love you more. You hang up first.
Give me I have your brand new books. Give me your drafts. Yes.
All right, party people. It is 6:02 and it has been awesome. Please go buy Caroline's book because it is genius and she's a genius, as you can obviously tell.
There's the cover right there.
Right.
And if you haven't read the other books, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. And also read Providence because, oh my God, that book is good.
And pre-order instructions for dancing and version 0. Like even if you have like all of your books too, like this is version 0. My hands were shaking. And so,
I'm ready for beer and burgers with you, woman.
Yes.
Whenever you're ready.
Yes. Get my shot.
Yep. Hi, Brittany.
Elise in the chat says she bought her signed copy. So everyone go buy your signed copy. If you need a distraction from the pandemic and being inside, like this is it. You won't be able to put it down, and you need to read it before the next season of the Netflix show comes out. So go get it.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you guys so much for doing this.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks to everyone out there. Thanks, Caroline. I'll
Thank
see you in
you.
like a couple of
Congratulations.
weeks.
Burgers and champagne.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
I'm just like
everyone.
saying words. Yeah.
I know. Words.